Hey guys, along with doing a little bit of work on the side, found Theodore. Well, he's been wrangled around with the women problems and stuff too. Luckily, my wife didn't do to me what his has done to him or tried to do in the past. You have 5 kids, right?
Yep. 5 kids,
And
1 adopted, 4 biological.
the 4 kids that are biologically yours, are they with 2 different or 3 different women? Or?
2. What worries me is she's utilized, her position being in enforcement.
You're talking about your last one now, right?
Yeah, the one here in Blackwell, and then
Okay, she, now when you were talking to me, you were talking like she was working at the shelter.
ACO, she works at the shelter, but
Animal control.
Yeah, the reason I mention that is because they can go pick up the papers at the shelter, and I just assume, hey, animal shelter, yeah, she works ACO, talking about Ponca, because somewhat they're connected. And I found out initially, too, that this paralegal she uses, her legal aid attorney, is also connected to the Ponca City Animal Shelter. So I was thinking, that's how this whole thing came about, and she's getting funding through that, maybe a free lawyer, but legal aid's not going to go across 3 cases. They may have 1 or 2 at the most. But
if she had her way, what would happen?
Her way, like she's trying to do, probably just totally get me out of my daughter's life, have me go down the road, have her own narrative, I guess, because that was the first issue started, man, in May of 24. And she was about 3, 4 months, 3, 4, 5 months pregnant, something like that. And blended family issues with my other son. She wasn't going to give, my new kid, even put my name hyphenated or even give her my name. None of that. She was just real strict about that.
So she didn't even want you on the birth certificate, or?
She didn't want my name on it. She wanted me on the birth certificate. Yeah, so obviously she can. I assume claim child support. I don't know, but it just seemed like she wanted a kid just to have a kid. She was more worried about her father having something to do with this kid than me. And it's like, I don't mind, because grandparents are important, extremely important. I would never get in between that. But like, she had started threatening me then. Oh, well, you could just move out, go get somewhere. And this is right after the contract deal, spending like 30 grand plus and, getting a house there and everything. And I'm like, what the hell?
So when she was telling you stuff like that, do you think she may have been messing around at that time, or talking to other people, I should say? What
I found out later, she was last year, in the summer last year, because when all this was going on, all up on my stuff, since I'd be talking to my other ex about the kids, or I'd say something like, hey, just being cordial, and she'd take that wrong, thinking, oh, well, you said this to her, what are you trying to do, screw her? I went in there and looked because of everything going on. Well, she had been talking to this other guy for like 2 or 3 years, and I was 100% loyal to her.
You didn't even talk to
no other girls, not emotionally, nothing like that, And it's like, okay, so we have all this other stuff going on. You're saying this and that. I'm writing all these books. I'm coming to you every day for repair, trying to get this shit worked out, and you're seriously, the last 2 years you told me you blocked this guy and you were talking, yeah, it hurt me. I was like, what are we doing here?
So the books, you told me about your books. Are they about your relationship, or?
The 4 books leading up to all this happening, I started writing those books around January, February of 2025. Because,
are you talking published books?
Yeah. And
really?
All this stuff was published, and what got me is my friend had tried to call me about 2 or 3 weeks before he committed suicide, and he was always all screwed up, drunk, whatever, calling me, just wanted to reminisce, being stupid, and I was just kind of done with that. I was like, so I didn't answer it, right? Well, a couple of weeks go by, and of course he kills himself. Yeah. Kind of brought that to her, and even all last year we even took vacations down to a Christian thing called it was Family Life, the Weekend to Remember thing, to try to kind of get her head right, not force it on her, but just show her that don't have to necessarily like accept the religion, but just look at the principles, right? All the principles in psychology, things that make relationships work, whatever, you can usually read somewhere in the Bible and see the correlation or similarity and point to it and be like, okay, that's where they got that or something. So I started writing those books, faith related, kind of doing a lot of psychology research, because I kept seeing these patterns. I'm like, I'm tired of this shit. I can see it and see what's going on, know what's coming next and what, so I started studying it, doing all the research, pulling it up, and I would take it to her and be like, hey, look, this is us. Can't we fix this? If you're not going to follow this or whatever, just look at the principles of it. Look at actual psychology. I said, you bring something to me. My mind is open. I can look at anything that has truth in it and identify kind of where it came from the Bible. I have no issue with that. I had a pastor and his wife helping us from England. I mean, the guy was from England, from the Family Life seminar thing. They are literally working with us for free, sending us books, calling us, and she just shit all over it and mocked it. And what really got me is one night sitting there laying with her, I'm like, I just can't believe some of the things you say. I had my friends commit suicide. I said, I deal with a lot of them same demons too. So I'm like, I feel bad that I wasn't there for my friends, She's like, well, people like that actually do that deserve it. I started shaking, but I'm thinking, well, she's got some dark humor sometimes, and she's just quick like that, but she is diagnosed borderline. Me shaking, I mean, I could not lay in bed with her. I'm just literally shaking, scared. And I told her, I said, I don't feel safe around you.
What was the deal with the judge?
The agreement came about in November. She files this case for improper purpose, in part to try to block my equity interest for all this money I invested in the house, this and that, because I told her even within a few weeks of her doing this, and at that point I just wanted to separate, move into the addition so I could get my nervous system right, because I was shaking around her. It was hard, just it was horrible walking around eggshells all the time and constantly seeking validation because I didn't know where we stood. She wanted me to continue putting in there like a husband and stuff and not have the security. I just don't live that way. And I kept telling her, I'm like, what are we doing? And how to plan child on top of that. And
did she clear you out? I mean, did it ever just take...
Oh yeah, pretty much, because I sold Kansas, and that was actually my kids. I only owed $15,000 on my Kansas place at the time when I sold it, and it was probably worth $150,000. 5 acres, 4-bedroom house, And basically, we had our first therapy appointment that night, and prior to that, I had worked with this therapist that Friday, and that appointment was that Monday. Okay, it was November 3rd. I was just glad we're getting help. We're going to therapy and everything. In my mind's going to be fine. I made dinner that night. I was just happy. And I thank God, right? She's actually going to do something. We're going to get some help. And of course, we go through the therapy, some hard things, this and that. And towards the end of the session, you guys got anything, to say to close this? She recommended structured separation, just like I knew it was coming. I was going to stay in the room. We're going to help each other and still work together. Just no intimate stuff and live like we normally do, which at that point wasn't too much different. Starts talking. She's like, well, I filed the custody and filed eviction. And I'm just like hearing this like, okay, did I hear that right? I was like, what? Yeah.
So at first you guys were talking about just separating in the same house.
No, this was during the therapy session with the therapist sitting there with us. And therapists see people break up and, separate all the time. But the only thing different about this is the way she done it and blindsided. What came out later, or is going to come out, is she had been planning this stuff for at least a month and a half, a couple months before she pulled this, which is pretty effing disturbing because she was still having sex with me, all that. That's what kind of disturbs me. I'm like, even that Friday, before that Monday, she's putting up all this charade, and I'm like, and I told her, I said, I feel like something's going on. I take the next day off, which was Tuesday, trying to figure stuff out, calling around, okay, this is what I got to do in case this, and that, and the other. Of course, I already had my papers drawn up because backing up to May of 2024, summer of 2024, when all this started, of course, I went and I drew some papers up and I kept them with me in the car because I was getting threatened, eviction and everything. So yeah, I had constructive trust papers. Was she physically
violent to you? I mean,
no, she's a very covert. I was putting all this together and I was trying to show her. I was like, you know, whether you realize you're doing this or not, and I realize that, you know, I react and I verbalize and say shit I don't mean. And I said, you look at these patterns. I said, I feel it when it's coming up in me, and I will tell you, I will say, look, hey, I can feel it, please stop. You get to court on November 17th, and I'm, you know, all this conduct and coercion she's trying to do, of course, is illegal. So I get to court, and the process, even filing a custody case to block or for housing, to kick someone else out using an eviction tool, that's okay if you're married. You know, family law has total control over that. But if you're not married, it's a civil issue, and especially with the equity issues we have. So what her lawyer chose to do, and I showed up there that day. Of course, the one on hearing, we're waiting for the judge in the courtroom. And I'm like, you know, I still want the hearing today. I said, but I can't argue housing with you. He's like, what? I said, well, housing's a civil deal. I said, I'm not going to argue housing with me. You're not getting me in that deal. You know, you didn't even put nothing for housing in your pleadings when you filed the petition for one. You know it's a civil issue. I guess they had started to file an eviction, but I never got that because they supposedly stopped it. I would like that proof. Don't have it. But I do got the agreed order they tried to get me to manipulate and threaten me to sign. We didn't have our information. We literally just, you know, it was within 2 weeks. Nobody had anything. And I knew that I wasn't going to be, they couldn't get me out of the house, and I was going to choose to go when I got my taxes. Just get the hell out. I'm not, you know, who wants to say where you're not wanted anyway? But I was going to fight for my interest. So I said I would sign that. We still get the hearing. Well, why do you still want a hearing if we have an agreement? I said, well, because I want to get you know what you did. I want to get all the conduct out on record and trying to threaten me and stuff. So he goes back and forth to Bandy a few times, you know, out of my sight.
Bandy, that's the judge.
Mm-hmm. And we're, you know, that thing's got a code key on it. Well, the second time or third time it was cracked open, left it open. So I walked back in there. And, you know, of course, at that time they hadn't let me in, but because if you're on counsel, you can't go back in there and talk about merits of the case without the other counsel, and you're not even supposed to do that off record anyways without hearings. Weeks to months went by. I got my case filed. It just escalated. Her lawyer starts filing this and that, starts sending me a 30-day deal to get out, and he starts trying to file through different forums again. So not only he backed the custody housing eviction crap off, so when I filed my other one, eventually about 3 months later, the equity case, he files an ejectment in there, which is like within that civil case is like an eviction within that case. Then he files an FED, which is an actual eviction case outside that one. So all in all, at that point, the fucker had filed three forums, 3 different cases for eviction at that point, which he only should have filed with Fed to begin with. Tell her, hey, you know, I'm getting my taxes, like, you know, towards the end of February. I got this house deal set up, and I'd been working on this house deal here for November, December. Gave her a written notification, hey, I'm leaving March 1st, you know, still keeping the equity case, you know, I would resolve it with you. I'd be willing to walk the fuck away from everything and let you have it if you just pay the down payment on this other place. Because that's what I was waiting on. I needed $4,000, plus my credit was hammered for another $6,000 at the time, which I had to take a loan for now. It is just a mess to get this whole thing done. All in all, about 3 years, this whole thing, and doing this with her has cost me over $100,000. You know, when you figure the new mortgage liability and everything else. So the end of February, I get my taxes, file my deal with her, letting her know I'm leaving. This fucker files eviction, the FED case. These are the other 2 foreign cases I was talking about. I'm like, okay, so the son of a bitch knows I'm leaving. It's basically biting my heels on the way out, And I'm like, why would you want to do this when I just sent you a settlement? Basically, let's work together. I will walk away, drop all the litigation, because I'm sick of it. I'm not getting paid for it, and it's worth my time, It's taking my time up, and we'll just concentrate and kind of duke it out with the time issue for the kids. No. He writes me back an email saying, okay, yeah, we'll do that, and turns right around and files a motion for sanctions in the custody case. And I'm like, what in the world? Why would you re-escalate when we're trying to, I'm willing to get, all I'm asking for is just the down payment. So anyways, I had to use all my taxes that I did get. I was living up in the motel for a month, working on the deal when I finally got out in March. And we finally closed on a place here on March 27th. March 30th was the new hearing date for the March 13th motion I had filed for the March 17th order that Wilkie signed to deal with all these issues and get them corrected. That's what it was all for. March 30th hearing comes up because I just got this place on March 27th. I had filed the closing disclosure in the court case just to keep them aware, hey, got me a place, I'm stable now, here's a parenting plan, we can work this out, here's an offer, let's get it in the hearing and get something solid, right? So you don't have all this bullshit. So Wilkie looks at it, he signs it. March 17th, signs the order. March 30th comes. Our lawyer sees the thing I filed in March 27th. Oh, I need time to look that over. You can't just file something in and out. So I said, look, I'll give you a couple, 3 weeks, whatever. So, put it off to 420. Bandy again. I get into the office. Her lawyer's just kind of smiling and smirking. And I was like, what, we're not going to hearing today? Well, he don't do motion. He didn't do motion. I said, well, who the hell scheduled this? I said, didn't you schedule this, man? I mean, what were we doing here? And of course, it went back and forth. And it got to the point, I know when I'm being lied to. And, I said, so you don't even know what you're doing. You don't know what case you're at. You didn't know you were on a motion today. It got to the point he got so defensive. He was just like, just go downstairs, talk to Will, And I said, so I actually got to put the judge's name.
Like that, or?
Yeah, Bandy actually admitted he didn't know why he was on. Because I was like, why are you even on my case then? I don't know. Being a smart ass to me. So this happens on 420. And of course, I go downstairs. I'm raising hell at the clerk's office. I'm like, dude, Bandy you got a judge that doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what case he's on. We're supposed to have a hearing. Wilkie comes out. He's real nice. I up until this point, I really liked Wilkie. He was a nice guy. And came out, reset the hearing. I said, dude, do you realize that this is going to take another 6 weeks out when you guys could have had this fixed? Now it's going to be, by the time we get to the June 1st hearing, it'll be 2 months out of my kid's life that, a bullshit time that could have been half and half, whatever, meaningful. All these things take time. So I said, look, at that hearing, very important, while we were in the chambers, her lawyer, when we were about to get out of there, and I was mad that they put it off, he was trying to get a journal entry signed by judge saying, oh, look, judge, I asked him to sign this journal entry, he wouldn't sign it, and he throws it down on the judge's desk, and I looked at it, I said, hell no, I'm not signing that journal entry. I didn't agree to that. I only agreed, he had the document I did sign and put it with some other papers he said that went together and threw it on I about went off, and that was so. That had happened. So in between that and Wilkie set the hearing, what I thought was intended for, all these issues to be corrected. May 1st comes. I get down there. There's an order down there. I was like, motherfucker, don't tell me. If I have them pull it, yeah, Bandy signs the temporary agreed order with the actual document that I signed that says Oklahoma guidelines. That Seeberger combined it with his bullshit that didn't even exist at the time, because the only thing that existed at the time was the unfiled agreed order that they tried to threaten me into signing, which now I found it on record because I had filed it into the record that they didn't have an extra copy. So the actual copy that I did have, I never had their unfiled or their 30-day clause in it. The one that they got me back again didn't have that. And anyways, there was like 2 versions back there, but back in November. But those versions, and they were standard, included alternating tax years, you know, this and that and the other, and they had to be signed. Well, you saw them. They had to be signed, notarized, the whole bit, themselves, along with that other agreement together. Whatever. But so what he did, he basically got Bandy to fucking do that. So I'm throwing a fit again. I'm like, what in the hell? Where's Wilkie at? A week before the June 1st hearing comes, contempt gets filed. I'm like, for what? Well, the order that they did, because I'm thinking we're going to go to the hearing, and that's still going to straighten out all this stuff on the original motion I filed that Wilkie signed the order for, to hear everything, to fix everything, right? So we get to the June 1st hearing. I also get an answer to contempt then. And I'm like, so we get there and I'm about to produce everything. He's like, well, this is a scheduling hearing. And I'm like, hold on a second. So we're not going to hear the issues that the hearing was supposed to be intended. I said, what? I said, you signed the original order, sir. And I wasn't trying to argue, but I thought that hearing was on record, so I wasn't going to argue with him. And so I'm just kind of letting him go. And he's like, I didn't sign that order. Bandy did. You know, and
but you looked at it and
Wilkie signed it. Wilkie signed it. And Wilkie says, oh yeah, maybe Bandy signed that. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just call the next day and get this transcripts. They forced me to sign an OR thing. I didn't even know what really the hell they were doing with the contempt and all that. I didn't know what the hell it was. So basically, you show up there and you have to sign the OR thing, or you have to go to jail and you have to pay the $5,000 to get out. And I'm like, that's a scam, because we ain't even had due process. I ain't even got to prove. It's been almost 10 months. Once Bandy didn't enter the order until May 1st, which we knew the worksheets obviously didn't exist back then, because that wasn't an agreement. Because I've asked the court, and I said, produce it. And the clerks even got all defensive. Well, you're implying that we lost something or got. I said, no, I know you guys just work here. It doesn't exist. You know, I was laughing. I was like, you know, you guys ain't going to be able to produce it. Neither can the lawyer. So it don't fucking exist. And they were like, well, you signed it. And I said, look what I signed. And I had them printed off, and I said, read that for me. It says the Oklahoma Child Support Guidelines. Where does it reference an agreed? Yeah, I can show you what the attorney tried to throw in there. That document also has to be notarized and agreed to and referenced and incorporated. And I signed is very clear. It is correct. But what also doesn't say is when I signed even that part of it, it's technically not a valid fucking agreement either. You know why? Because I was being coerced. I was being threatened. I got proof of it. I had a custody case filed for an eviction, improper purpose. That right there negates that. But let's say,
not only did she want to take your kid away, she was wanting you to be on your homework.
So I called back up there the next day, which was Tuesday morning, and I'm like, okay, I want to get transcripts, right? Because this one was finally on record, right? We actually had it in where the judge was sitting up there and had people in there. You know what they told me? Oh, we don't have a court reporter. I felt fucking lost. And I'm like, okay, so you have a family court with no court reporter. I mean, that's just insane. Where I come from, yeah, I mean, especially in family court, you have to have a court reporter. It'd be very easy to incorporate this into this document. If there would have been a worksheet or anything along with it, an amount, there would be the amount, bam, just write it in, temporary, whatever, and then the other stuff. I mean,
what they're trying to do is get you to sign stuff without looking at it.
Well, they get you to sign one document that's vague that isn't vague. It really isn't vague. But then they want to mash it up. Oklahoma support guidelines. This is the support guidelines I filled out. Yeah, it's a support guideline, but it's not the support guidelines. If you're going by guidelines, they have to be filled out with correct information. Even if someone agreed to do that, they still couldn't sign that even if it was an agreement. You know why? Because it would be fraud. Anything to deal with money, you can't lie on the funds and then try to work the numbers if that's what the guidelines are. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So what he tried to do is claim that there was an agreement to do all that and leave my dependents off and everything, which is technically not even fucking legal.
So leaving your original kids off as well?
Yeah, and he kept doing it. I just can't let
You're a man that's willing to fight for his kids.
I'm willing to go to jail for contempt, take a contempt charge to prove to them that this is wrong. This is a whole other avenue we could open up about her just trying the DHS thing and everything that almost got our babysitters, Lola's normal babysitter, who were like her godparents, basically almost got them popped for fine, for babysitting, because I guess over 15 hours a week, only you got to have a license or something like that, which would have been fine if we would have known, but we didn't know. And okay, so
they have to have a license or something. Is that what you're saying?
Over 15 hours a week, which you can get licensed, take the thing. It's not a big deal.
How do they expect people?
Oh, people do it. Yeah, everybody be getting arrested or fined, But the point is, by Cassandra trying to start stuff with DHS can't hear, and you know how they do. They got to go out, interview, and do their thing. In fact, we got them coming by Monday. Yeah, the June 1st hearing, we couldn't get documentation of that, and everything got put off till August. Because he was like, when do you want to have... They can sure get me into a contempt hearing and try to adjudicate that, but they can't even hear the issues to get a worksheet straightened out that says right there, does it not, in accordance with the Oklahoma support guidelines, child support guidelines. That's what it means. So her lawyer, and this was the only thing we had, because the worksheet didn't exist. We couldn't make one because we didn't have the figures or nothing. It wasn't even possible. I wrote all them books and for like a year. You know what she told me? Well, I thought you'd be mad. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, no shit. But I said, so you do all this?
Did you ever feel like those books may have been a wedge in your relationship?
I'm sure.
I could tell
they
that.
Were, but...
Of course, you've seen some of my videos. My videos are a wedge in my relationship, I promise.
Yeah.
But
and they were, to a point, and people did say, and she even did say, but I'm like, and here's how I put it to her. I'm like, if you're not going to try and we're actually not going to work on something, what do you, and I told her, I said, it's up to you. I said, bring us something, and I will 100% work on it with you. That's all I'm asking. I can't do this without reciprocation or not, knowing what the fuck we're doing. Basically, I couldn't sit there and continue to give like a fucking husband and invest in that place and emotionally in a relationship if we're not eventually going to get married. And I said, and I made her define it. I said, what is this? What is your goal? Because I told her, I said, when I got with her, I was working towards marriage and being a father again. Because, we talked about it. She was young. She didn't have kids. I was like, I'm going to restart over. Got these kids that fucked up. So let's,
No, I've came across the realization we're just tools until they find a better tool.
Here's the thing. You get with a woman, press this woman up, because you want to press her up.
Yeah, build her up. Tell her she's beautiful.
Yeah, you want to press her up, so maybe when she gets up so far and you're down here pressing her up, using all of your resources to press her up instead of staying up here and like pulling her, so you start the imbalance, right? Instead of being here and moving up together.
Putting her on a pedestal.
Well, what happens is you press her up so much, all your resources, sold my Kansas place, fucked off my credit, invested it all in there. So basically, use up all of everything that you can just to press this person up, just to prove to them, hey, and then they get up here, and when it's time to say, okay, now pull me up and let's do this, what they do, a woman starts looking and says, well, why am I going to look down here when I got this other guy sitting over here? Yeah, this guy pressed me up and everything, but I could get much further. I'm already here and can go up here. And
I did that with both my other wives.
That's why
balance. For school, after they got done with school, they're like, well, I mean, my current wife, she's okay with everything, but when she said, well, you didn't help me through school, or you know, you could have got a job. Well, who's going to watch the kids? Who's going to take care of all that? Who's going to fix your house, your car, and all this stuff?